Welcome to Answering the Call, the official podcast of the 12th Man Foundation. Our show brings you closer to the heart of Texas A&M athletics through powerful stories of perseverance, purpose, and life-changing opportunities made possible by 12th Man Foundation donors. From student athletes and coaches to former students and dedicated staff, you'll hear firsthand how donor support shapes the lives of Aggie student athletes in competition and beyond. Whether you're a lifelong Aggie or simply curious about what makes Texas A&M so special, you're in the right place. Let's dive into today's episode. Howdy, and welcome back to another episode of Answering the Call, the official podcast of the 12th Man Foundation. I'm your host, Ivy Robinson, and before I introduce today's guest, I'd like to share a quick update from the 12th Man Foundation. All fully paid Aggie Football season tickets and parking passes for the 2025 season are now available in 12th Man Foundation accounts. As a reminder, tickets and parking passes for all Aggie athletic events are now digital. Plus, there are several important updates that apply to all ticket holders. You can visit 12thman.com/ticket guide to learn more. And we can link this URL in the show notes as well. If you have any questions, give us a call at 888-992-4443. We're happy to help. Again, that's 888-992-4443. We can't wait to see you at Kyle Field. And speaking of Kyle Field, today's guest knows the iconic stadium quite well. He's not only an Aggie football coach, but also a former student athlete who was an all-conference defensive tackle for the Aggies. I'm thrilled to be joined in studio today by Texas A&M football's defensive line coach, Tony Jerod-Eddie. Thank you so much for joining us on the show, Tony.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so Tony, I know you've worn a lot of hats, player at Texas A&M, now a coach, a mentor, but I want to know, who is Tony off the field, if you describe yourself?
First, I'm a father, I'm a son, I'm a brother, I'm a good friend, kind of easygoing, laid back, goofy type of guy. I like to have fun. You only get one life, so I like to make the most of it. Love is a very important word to me. I like to show love to those that show it to me, and sometimes to those that don't. You know what I mean? I'm a lover. But that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah. Let's take it all the way back. I know you're from Dallas, Texas, and you went to DeSoto High School. Can you tell us more about your childhood and your background?
Yeah, so, I was raised by my mom primarily. My dad he was in and out, but my mom is my hero. She actually was pregnant with me when she was 14 years old. She had me like 2.5, 3 weeks after her 15th birthday. So she turned 15 on March 8th, 1990. And she had me on March 29th, 1990. Yeah, so happy 15th birthday. Me and my mom are very close. Statistics say that, she wasn't supposed to be much, and I for sure wasn't supposed to be, but you see what we did to statistics. So as I'm sure people would think that it was challenging, we grew up together, got help from a bunch of family and friends and whoever. They say it takes a village.
Yeah, it truly does, yep.
We moved a lot when I was a kid, and, we're in and out of family members' homes and friends' homes. And, my mom did the best she could with what she had. And she's my hero. I mean, because she said it at a young age. She said, I made my bed and I'm going to lay in it. She did her very best to give me and my siblings the best life that she could, and so I always owe her everything, and I, love her to death, obviously, like anybody would love their mom. But my mom had to fight and claw and to make ends meet, and she did it. That's why she's my hero. I had a pretty good childhood. I had another brother by same mom and same dad, Vincent Eddie. He played at DeSoto as well and went on to play at the University of Louisiana Monroe. He played defensive back. And then my mom got married and had 2 more kids, Eric and Jasmine. Eric went on to play at the University of Kansas. Jasmine went on to get her degree from college. So I was a first generation college graduate, and I kind of flip the course of the direction of my family. You know what I mean? All of my siblings went on to get college degrees, and, you know, that's a credit to my mom. I was the first one in my family to go to college and graduate from college, and then all of my siblings followed after. And then I have two other siblings. My dad got married, had twins, Mike and Michaela, and they both are, you know, in college right now. So, you know, kind of changed the trajectory of my family. But it was all credit to my mom. And, you know, I didn't have a great relationship with my dad growing up. But honestly, through my son, I have a 7-year-old son named Enzo, and through him and me not wanting to take the opportunity for him to have a relationship with his grandfather, me and my dad's relationship has been mended, and you know, it's been good. So I'm blessed to have both of my parents. You know, I got a bunch of siblings, and I got another sister before my dad got married, because I know they're gonna hear this and they're gonna be like, "Why you know what I mean?" So
you've got to mention me.
Yeah, I gotta mention them all. But Kyra, my dad, before he got married, so between his marriage and after my mom, he had a daughter, and her name is Kyra, and she does nails in the Dallas area. So I got all my siblings. It's a bunch of us, but like I said, it takes a village. So had a good childhood, you know, moved around Dallas a lot. Started playing football when I was 9 years old, which is late for Texas. But, you know, you going around with a little giant and taking them to school, and you taking them to get haircuts, and everybody like, "Hey, what football team you play for? What football?" And my mom got tired of you know, answering those questions.
Telling them no.
Yeah,
he doesn't play. Yeah,
you know, you don't have to pay for nothing. We'll come pick them up. We'll drop them off at home. And so she finally gave in, and I started playing football when I was 9 years old. And, you know, I played all the time. I loved it from
the beginning.
Birth. It's pictures of me when I was 3-4 years old with football, basketball, baseball. Like, I just love sports. But started playing organized when I was 9 years old, and, you know, the rest is history. But, you know, like I said, it takes a village. So once I got to school, I had moved so much. I never stayed at a school for more than a year. And then I got to DeSoto, and my dad was living in DeSoto. I can say this now. I wasn't living in DeSoto, but we kind of made it work. I was living in Oak Cliff area, and my mom was driving me to school, and we used my dad's address. And then she was moving again to Irving. I think it was like around the 8th grade, and that's when I met Vaughn. And so I moved in with Vaughn. The coach told the team, Tony's gonna move. And then Vaughn, like, we were like all in the huddle, and he was like, "Hey, you can live with me." And his mom and my mom are really good friends, and that's a part of the village. Like, they are a part of my village. So then now I got to talk about my godbrothers, Vaughn Miller and Vince Miller. Those are my two godbrothers. So all in all, I have 5 brothers, 3 sisters. So big village, a big family. Vaughn came to Texas A&M, and so Texas A&M has started recruiting me. They got a head start on me, and then the rest is history. You know, Vaughn and Garrett Williams came to A&M from DeSoto, and then me and Cyrus Gray followed.
Right after, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, had a great time here at Texas A&M, and we all ended up playing in the National Football League, and it's a great story.
Man, thank you so much for sharing all that. I mean, what a powerful story. Was Vaughn 1 year ahead of you, 2 years? Like, or was he?
Vaughn graduated from DeSoto in 2007,
yeah.
And then I graduated in 2008. But, you know, we lived in the same house in high school, so.
I bet y'all have some stories and some memories.
A bunch of, you know, bunch of stories. Some, you know, I won't say the ones that are popping up in my mind right now, but, you know, we laughed together, cried together, got whoopings together, snuck out the house together. We did it all. So, yeah, it was fun. And then, you know, we kind of continued it when me and Cyrus got here at A&M.
Mm-hmm. Before we talk about your time at Texas A&M, I want to go back to your mom and her being your hero. What's one piece of advice or a life lesson she taught you as a young kid that you still uphold or you really lean on to this day?
That's easy. She always told me, don't worry about things that you can't control. And I think that she had a hard time with worrying about stuff and stressing. You know, obviously she lived a pretty rough life and she made the most of it, but I think she did not want me to suffer from some of the things that she suffered from, stemming from worrying about things you can't control. There's nothing you can do about it, so don't worry about it. And so people, a lot of times they tell me like, and I am a bit nonchalant sometimes, but it's not that. It's just if I feel like I have no control over a decision or outcome or something like that, then I don't put much stress into it because there's nothing I can do about it. And all it's doing is adding stress to an already stressful life as is, So that is easily one of the things that she told me and instilled in me from a young age, and I still live by today.
I mean, that's powerful advice. That's something my parents actually told me too. It's like, you can only control what you can control, and there's no sense in adding to that stress or adding to the anxiety you might experience. Worrying or obsessing over something that you literally can't change. But yeah, take care of your business. And if you're doing the best that you can at what you can control, then that's what matters. Okay, so going back to Texas A&M, can you tell me about the recruitment process to Texas A&M and how all of that unfolded for you?
Just growing up how I grew up, I did not really know about the whole recruiting process and, going to college. My mom, again, she would tell me, I remember being 8 or 9 years old, and she'd be like, you going to college, and I even, I probably didn't even know what college was or what, but I just knew I was going to college because she said I was going to college. And again, this was before, right when I started playing football, so didn't think about getting a scholarship or none of that. I can't remember who was my first offer. They came in bunches. I was big. I was, as a freshman, I was 6'2", 210 pounds. You walk in and this college coach is walking in and it's like, man, this dude look like a grown man. So, before they knew if I could play or not, sure, I probably got some offers and they just would, once they come in, they start rolling in.
Yeah.
I pretty much could have went anywhere in the country. But like I said, I had went to Texas A&M with Vaughn on recruiting trips to games and stuff like that. And so that's who I was, most familiar with. And I think it was an easy decision. We kind of made a pact, the four of us, wherever one goes, then we all gonna go. At DeSoto, we were known for putting a bunch of guys into Division I programs. And I think they maybe in 2005 or 2006, we had 3 or 4 guys go to Oklahoma State. We had 4 guys go to Arizona. And so we kind of wanted to do that with our friend circle. And so we kind of said, whichever school one of us go to, we gonna all go to it. And friends say that all the time, but we actually did it. So Garrick Williams, he decided that he was going to Texas A&M first. And so not long after that, Vaughn committed to Texas A&M. And then our senior year, I decided next, that's where I was going. And Cyrus Gray was the last one. But what happened was they committed and went to play for a coach, Dennis Francione. And then Fran got fired before we were coming in. And so, it kind of was this is who I know, this staff is who I know, who I'm familiar with, they're gone. So it kind of opened up my recruiting process a little bit, and I took some visits. Back in that time, it wasn't a lot of guys being recruited to USC from the state of Texas. I remember I got a call from the staff, it was Pete Carroll and Ken Norton Jr. They called me, I never forget it, I was in the mall, in Redburn Mall in Dallas, and they called me, and I was like, oh man, that's crazy. And I told my mom about it, and she was like, no, you ain't going.
So she shut that down real quick.
Yeah, I wanted to go to USC, and she was like, no, you ain't going. How am I going? It was no NIL, it was no, so it was like, how am I going to see you play?
Like, how am I going to get there?
That's 18, 20 hours away. How am I going to get to see you? So she was like, no. And I was like, well, okay. And, Mike Sherman and his staff, Buddy Wild was a D-line coach. They came in and they did a great job of trying to mend the relationship between us and Texas A&M. It was a new staff, but it still was, I fell in love with the culture here at Texas A&M, the energy here at Texas A&M, the fan base at Texas A&M, and all of the resources that were available to me, not just in football, but outside of football. And so those things still stood true. It was new people in the buildings, but a lot of the things that I fell in love with Texas A&M for, those things were still here. So I ended up coming to Texas A&M, me and Cyrus, and we kept our promise. Vaughn was like, bro, you promised. You promised you was coming.
You made a pact.
Yeah, man. You gonna leave me here by myself? And I'm like, nah, bro, I'm coming. So I enjoyed my time.
Did those guys ever, when you were in the recruitment process, do you ever remember them telling you stories of Texas A&M or them telling you, hey, we love playing here, it's the 12th man. There's nothing like it in Kyle Field.
Yeah, and I went to some games to see them, which was crazy because we had been at recruiting trips together and shaking the players' hands before the games in the old weight room, and and now I'm going to the games, and now it's my brother, Vaughn is here, and my friend Garrick, and it's, you know what I mean, and just seeing that and seeing everything that we had kind of been talking about come to fruition, it was amazing. We had stories today. I mean, me and Vaughn, that's my brother, so we talked all the time, and he was like, "You're gonna love it when you come here," and it was good.
So you're a 4-year Aggie letterman, and per 12man.com, you also finished your career at A&M with all Big 12 honors. When you think back during that time as a student athlete at Texas A&M, was there a specific game or moment that really stands out to you the most, and why would that be?
I came in and started as a freshman. I think I started like 6 or 8 games as a freshman. So my first sack comes to mind. We played at the University of Miami, and I got my first college sack. It wasn't a Big 12 opponent, so it was a big game. It was early on in the year. I can't remember if it was the first game or the third game, but it was early on in the season, and it was against the University of Miami, and everybody was pumped up about this game. We ended up losing pretty bad, but selfishly, I got my first college sack, so I was, that game always sticks out to me. My junior year, Vaughn, senior year, we had so many big games. We played the Nebraska game. We won 9-6, a defensive battle. And, as a defensive player, like, that's what you want the score to be. You want the score to be like 9-6, 6-0, you know what I mean? 3-0, those games. And so it was like a defensive slugfest. And, we came out on top. I think they were ranked like 8 in the country, 7 in the country. We were ranked 15. And then another one in that same season was against Oklahoma. We had like 4 or 5 goal line stands, and we were both ranked in the top 10. And it was, we had a great defensive performance. And, the 12th man, the crowd was screaming, wrecking crew. And that was like, I got goosebumps right now just thinking about like hearing that, because you hear about when you come to Texas A&M as a defensive player, you hear about the tradition of, high caliber defenses and all these amazing players that came before you, and the wrecking crew. You hear about those stories of the wrecking crew. And so you out on the field, it's 102,000, I think, at the time or something like that, fans, and they screaming wrecking crew, and it's like, dang, you know what I mean? Like, we did it. Yeah.
This is off on a tangent, but like when you're recruiting these guys, defensive linemen and just elite players to come play defense, do they like ask about the wrecking crew? Did they know? Like, or do you explain like the reputation to them in those conversations? Or
yeah, we try to give them. I mean, and so in the recruiting process, it's all about information and giving the players the most information and the best information you can to make a good decision. Because at the end of the day, all of the schools in this conference are good schools. You know what I mean? And it's about picking the best school for you. But there's so many schools with so many good things to offer. Obviously, biasly speaking, Texas A&M is the best. But unbiasedly, I think, honestly, is one of the best schools in the country where you can play the best football and also get a great education from an institution that's an honorable institution and a great academic institution as well. And then the resources that we provide, and the fans and the alumni association is, Aggies take care of Aggies. And,
right.
I think it's a bunch of different boxes, that have to be checked. And it's Texas A&M checks all of them.
Absolutely. I mean, speaking of resources, it's just Aggie student athletes, it's no secret that they have elite resources, programs, facilities to come here and better themselves as an athlete and then prepare them for their careers. What is your perspective as a coach? Like, how have you seen the facilities really make practices run efficiently, and the programs and the resources like Clark Nutrition Center? How have you seen all of these work together for the better of the guys you're coaching?
I think it's a testament to, like I said, the resources and the alumni. Like, Aggies that have come here and they're doing, well in life, they pour back into this place. So it speaks volumes about this place as a whole. Like, people want to see the future of this place better than it was when they were here. And so they pour back into this place. And so that's why you walk into these facilities and you walk into these meeting rooms and you walk into the nutrition center and the academic center, and it's like a museum, you know what I mean? And I tell the families that come, and I tell the kids, like, you have to want to fail. You come to Texas A&M, you have to want to fail, because you have every resource available to you to be the best version of who you want to be on and off the field. So, it's hard to come here and not do well.
Going back to your time at Texas A&M as a student athlete, what coaches or teammates really left the biggest impact on you when you were a player here?
Coach Sherman was my head coach, so we came in together, and then when I went to the NFL, he was leaving as well. And when I came here, I was rough around the edges. I wasn't quite used to structure, and I was a little bit of a hard head, and he was on me. He stayed on me from day one, and now when I think about it and I look back, the things that he would talk to me about, I still think, I'm like, man, I sound like Coach Sherman. Like when I'm talking to my guys, I'm like, man, this is what Coach Sherman used to tell me. I'll tell you a story. So he told us when we were at the hotel, when somebody comes in the room, like when somebody's coming to clean the room, it don't matter what you have going on, you get out of the room. Because once that door closes, it's your word versus their word. There's nobody else in there. And so still to this day, I was just in London last week. The lady came and said, do you want turn down service? And I said, yeah. I said, 1 second, I'm gonna put my clothes on and I'm gonna get out of there. You know what I mean? Like little things like that. And I still live by that today. He told me that when I was 18, 19 years old, and I'm 35 years old, and I still live by that. And Vaughn still does too. We talked about it like a month ago. Coach Sherman, he was very instrumental in the growth of me, really not on the field because it was my D-line coaches, but really, and he's an offensive guy, but really just as a positive male role model. And I didn't have a lot of them growing up. Vaughn's dad, Vaughn Miller Sr., was instrumental in that throughout my high school years. And my dad, he taught me some stuff. He was in and out, but he taught me things that I remember. But a consistent male role model and positive figure in my life, Coach Sherman was. And then Coach Terrell Williams, who's now the defensive coordinator with the New England Patriots. He was my D-line coach here. Very instrumental in my growth on the field and off the field as well. And Buddy Wyatt was my first D-line coach. Those guys were very instrumental in the growth of me on and off the field.
And what about any other teammates that had pushed you to become a better player? And
Lucas Patterson is a guy that he played a little bit in the NFL, but he was like the quiet guy. He didn't say much, but he showed me how to show up and do your job and work hard. Michael Bennett was an amazing player that also helped me along the way when I was a young guy. And Vaughn, just having Vaughn and Cyrus and Garrick there as brothers, as high school, friends and teammates, we had a true bond and a true brotherhood. And so that made the college experience a lot easier to have guys that you already have a relationship and you already love and they have your back. I think that made my college experience a lot better as well. And then one of my favorite teammates was Spencer Neely. Crazy. He's a lawyer now, which is crazy. If Spencer Neely ever is representing you in court, good luck. But no, he's great. I'm sure he's great. But he was so crazy, man. I love Spencer, man. He was one of my favorite teammates. I played with a bunch of guys. I played with, Johnny Manziel and Mike Evans and Christian Michael and Cedric Ogbuehi and Luke Jokel, Jake Matthews, Ryan Tannehill. I mean, we had a bunch of guys, a bunch of first-round draft picks, and I know I'm missing, a lot of people, and I love all y'all. I can't name everybody, so.
I love it. I want to get your perspective, Coach, on just you mentioned this earlier, the value of the Aggie degree. When did you specifically earn your degree, and why was that moment so valuable to you?
Didn't know much about going to college, and nobody in my family had went to college. And so, all of this is because of the game of football. I owe the game of football so much. Like, it's blessed me with so much. Me and my family with so much. And I've met so many people and been so many places because of this game that I grew up just loving from a little boy. But, I came to college and I was lazy and very, very smart. School was never hard for me, really. But I was an athlete and a jock. I got the kind of jock syndrome, and I was just doing just enough, just the bare minimum, just enough to get by. And I was spoiled, and I had to hustle, because I got so lazy in high school. And so my GPA and my test scores, and I had to, it was a fight. My mom was like, we're going to get this done. But it was a fight at the end. And so then I get to college. I graduated in 3.5 years, just a little growth, and coaches helped with that a little bit, being where you're supposed to be and doing what you're supposed to be doing. But I ended up graduating a semester early. And honestly, it was because, so it was no NIL back then, and I was broke. So they gave us money if we took mini masters.
Oh.
Yeah, so like we were on scholarship, so you could go home or you can stay and take a class, and so you would get paid for staying and taking a class. And so I took every mini master known to man. So I'm going into my junior year and I'm meeting with my counselor and we talking about classes, and they was like, oh, well, if you take, 18 hours, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was, if you take 15 hours or 18 hours this year, you'll graduate. And I'm like, oh, wow. And I didn't even know. So I wouldn't, I'm not going to lie and say that I was doing it because I was trying to be an overachiever and graduate early, but it worked out.
Yeah.
And so I ended up graduating in May and coming in a little bit later because I had to get my test scores, higher because my GPA was down because I was, missing school and stuff and not doing assignments and being lazy in high school. And then I go from that to graduating in 3.5 years. And it was very special, first to get my Aggie ring, to complete 90 hours. I got my Aggie ring and that was, it was special. My mom came down and my support system came down and that was special. But then, to finish the deal early and graduate and become the first person to graduate college, in my family. And, I talked a little bit about my background and where I came from and how I grew up, And then to that, was awesome and one of the most important and special days of my life.
Had you not received that football scholarship and that opportunity to come play at Texas A&M, how do you think your life would have been?
Probably not good.
And how do you think that scholarship just opened the door to who you are today?
Yeah, it saved my life, to be honest with you. If I had stayed in Dallas, who knows how my life would have turned and what things I would have gotten into. And if it weren't for Coach Sherman being hard on me and all of the, my defensive line coaches that I mentioned before, holding me to a standard and seeing the value in me, football at Texas A&M saved my life. Like, to be honest with you, I didn't want to coach. I never wanted to coach. Football came very easy for me as a player. I was always the coach on the field, so to speak. So it came easy for me, but people are different and people learn different and they receive information different. And so to me, I would be sitting in the meeting room and I'm like, man, like, Coach been telling us to step with our right foot and put our hands and put our eyes outside in the gap for like 2 months. Like, why is this hard? Like, and I remember saying to myself in one of my meetings, I could never coach. I'm never gonna coach. Like, and look at me. But it's bigger than just that. You know what I mean? Like, my goal, I wanted to give back to the game that blessed me and my family with so much and so many opportunities. Like I said, I've been so many places and met so many people and done so many things just because of this game that I grew up loving. And, I want to give back to that game. And so I wanted to be an agent. And then I got an opportunity. I started my coaching career in Denver. The head coach at the time, Vic Fangio, was my defensive coordinator in San Francisco. And I was out there in Denver. I had retired. I was taking my son to see his Uncle Vaughn. He loved his Uncle Vaughn. You know what I mean? I was taking my son to see him practice and play and stuff. And I knew like 5 or 6 coaches on staff, and they would always, because again, I was a smart player. So they would always be like, hey, come watch some film. Come. And I'm like, I don't want to coach. I don't want to coach. And I finally just gave in. I did an internship. And then shortly after that, Terry Price, rest his soul, reached out to me because when I was leaving to go to the NFL, he was coming in with Sumlin at the new staff, and we kind of made contact and kind of kept in contact, and he was checking on me. And, it was a kid by the name of Shamar Turner who was at DeSoto, and he was asking me, like, do I know Shamar? And I'm like, yeah, well, his uncle cut my hair. He'd been cutting my hair since I was in college. So it's just so many, what I mean? So
many connections.
Yeah,
yes.
So many connections. Mm-hmm. But, he was like, what you doing? And I was like, I actually just started this internship with the Broncos. And he was like, oh, man, I didn't know you wanted to coach. I said, well, shit, I ain't know either. Excuse my language, but
but here I am.
Yeah, I didn't know I wanted to coach either, and I'm giving it a shot. And then he called me back like a week later and was like, hey, we got a spot for you if you want to come back home. And there you go. Aggies take care of Aggies. Coach Price was a former player, graduate of Texas A&M, and he was coaching at Texas A&M. Give me a call, and now that was 2020, and now it's 2025. I'm going into my sixth season here at Texas A&M coaching, and it's just crazy how that's literally Aggies taking care of Aggies. It's funny, I just talked to his son yesterday when I was at the grocery store after work, and he wants to coach, and he was talking about, like, he always thought he wanted to coach, but the the impact that his dad left on so many people. You know what I mean? He was like, I definitely want to coach. And I'm like, bro, well, you just let me know, because I probably wouldn't be the defensive line coach at Texas A&M had it not been for your dad reaching out to me.
Right.
He asking me about a guy that came from my high school, but still, he checking in, seeing what I was doing. And now a week later, he's saying, we got a spot here at Texas A&M. And now I come back to Texas A&M in 2020. And then it's just, just crazy. I'm like, bro, so you want to coach, I will help you with everything in me. You know what I mean? It's just crazy.
Paying it forward with that opportunity.
Yeah. How life works, and I told him, I'm like, man, if I'm half the man that your dad was, I did a good job. You know what I mean? Because to go through life and nobody have nothing bad to say about you. You know what I mean? I know for sure I probably rub some people the wrong way and, not handle some situations as gracefully as I would have wanted to. And I'm sure it's probably a couple people that like, man, Coach Tony a jerk. Probably not a lot, but it's something. But my point is that Coach Price, I never heard a bad word about him. And so that kind of brought a smile to my face that his son wanted to coach. And, he's at Ole Miss right now, finishing his last season. So I told him to enjoy it. But when it's time, reach out and, me and Elijah Robinson for sure, help you out. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Come back home to Aggieland.
Yeah, for sure.
You mentioned football and the scholarship opportunity. It literally saved your life. And many of the people listening to this episode are 12 Penn Foundation donors and season ticket holders whose contributions go back to impact those very opportunities, the resources, the scholarships, to give young student athletes the opportunity to come here. So what would be your message to those who are contributing in those ways and who care about providing those opportunities for young student athletes?
I would just say that, a lot of what we do around here is football centric, and we judge a lot off the wins and the losses. And obviously we all want to win, and we want to win the SEC championship, and we want to win a national championship. But the impact that all of the supporters, the donors, the big and the small donors, the impact that the giving, the generosity that you guys display is so much bigger. It's life-changing for people. And I'm one of the people that the generosity that this place showed me and my family, it saved my life. So I want to just inspire you that if you're willing and you're able to keep doing it, because you are literally changing lives, and we appreciate you guys.
I've got to ask this. When Mike Elko appointed you defensive line coach, when he came in, took over the program, what did that moment mean to you personally, and how has it been working with Coach Elko?
Like I said, I had a fast track. I started coaching in 2020. I was a guy that did not want to coach football. And in 2020 here I was doing an internship with the Denver Broncos. And then a month or two later after that, I finished the fall camp there, and I came here for the beginning of the 2020 season. And that was the season where we went 9-1 all SEC schedule. We actually finished number 4 in the final polls, but we just missed the playoffs that season. And Elko was here actually as a defensive coordinator. And so I was familiar with him. Now, I was working with the offense at the time. I worked both. I worked with the defense, but on paper, I was the O-line. I was the offensive line GA, but I was familiar with Coach Elko. But I moved to defense a couple years after that, and that was home for me. I'm a defensive lineman. When I made the move, he left. He did that season. That was his first season at Duke. So we were familiar with each other. We had worked with each other for a couple years. But when he came back, and we had the conversation, and he asked me what do you want to do? I said, I want to be a D-line coach. And he told me that he admired the way that I worked, and you just never know who's watching you, and you know what I mean, because I wasn't directly working with him, but he said that he believed in me. And when I became the D-line coach, it was crazy. It was a surreal moment, but I knew that I had work to do. I had a lot to learn. There's a rich tradition of D-line play here at Texas A&M. Me being one of them, and I did not want to let people down. Just finished my first season. We had a first rounder and 2 second rounders, and I'm excited about the guys that we have now for this season. We'll have some more draft picks, but just trying to do my part and, not let the guys down, because a lot of them got my number and they're going to call me and tell me about it. So a little extra pressure. So just trying to continue the rich tradition. But working with Coach Elko, It's been great. I think he's the man for the job. He's a grinder, you know what I mean? And the team takes on the identity of the coach. And so we got a bunch of kids that not only do we have talent, obviously we recruiting at a high level, but the development from the weight room to the field, the structure of the program, I believe that we will win, and we will win soon. You know what I mean? I know what winning looks like. I've been a part of winning teams. My rookie year in San Francisco, we went to the Super Bowl. We lost to the Ravens, but we went to the Super Bowl. We lost, I think, 3 games that season. And then the next year we went to the NFC Championship. Like, I know what a winning team looks like. I know how it's structured, and I know what it takes. And Elko, he's been a joy to work with because he's a winner. You know what I mean? He's won everywhere he's been, and I know why. I see why now. So it's been a joy.
Mm-hmm. I just keep going back. I love how your story, I mean, you never pictured yourself being a coach and like in this situation, and here you are. And it's just awesome how life's events and opportunities and connections can change your life in an instant, you know, your path and your trajectory. What do you think is one thing coaching has taught you about yourself that playing never did?
When you're a player, you can be a lot more selfish. And I was a team player, but you can be a team player and also be selfish. You can be selfish to get the results that you want. And that could be, if I'm my best self as a player, then I contribute to making the team its best self. As a coach, it's a lot different. Like, for one, I have way more patience, obviously, because when I was sitting, my selfish self was sitting in that room like, oh my God, rolling my eyes like, why don't this guy get it? Instead of trying to help out. That was probably young Tony, and I became one of the coaches on the field and would help the guys out. A lot more patient and just understanding that people, like I said earlier, they learn different. Some people, if they hear it, they good. Some people got to see it and hear it. Some people got to go do it. But I've learned to be a lot more patient. And just the thing that I like about coaching is that I know that majority of the players that I coach are not going to play in the National Football League. So, and that's their goal, and we're going to try our damnedest to go do it. But just the reality of it is most of the players that I coach are not going to play in the National Football League. So now what? Mostly all of the players that I coach are going to be fathers. They're going to be husbands. You know what I mean? So me equipping these young men with life skills, there's so many parallels between sports, and particularly football, and life. And so being a man of your word, if I say I'm going to do something, then I'm going to do it. And I don't need to sign a contract. I give you my word, and that's what it is. Just equipping them to become positive members of the society, and knowing that I'm affecting their lives in a positive manner. I think that brings me the most joy. One of my players, Albert Regis, he just had a baby, and it was like, I know that he's gonna be a great dad because he does what he's supposed to do on and off the field. I don't have to worry about him. It's not a book that you can read and say, okay, this is how you go be a dad. And he was asking me, and I'm like, bro, it kind of just happened. Like, it's gonna happen. You're gonna be ready. You have what it takes to be a great dad. I know that because I see it. You know what I mean? I see you doing what you're supposed to be doing, being where you're supposed to be. You care, you loving, you're a good teammate. A lot of those qualities are the qualities that it takes to be a great dad. And so just stuff like that, that's what I like about being a coach. You know what I mean? It's hard. It's long days, early mornings, late nights. But, when I get a text from one of the kids and they like, Coach, I appreciate you. For me, like, that's, you know what I mean?
It's all worth it then and there in that moment. Yeah. So kind of to wrap this all up, we're approaching the upcoming football season. Everyone's excited. It's about to be game days back at Kyle Field. What can you tell many of the Aggie football fans listening to this episode right now about the upcoming season, how the team is looking, and specifically the defensive line, like what you're most excited about?
I think you're going to get a better brand of football than you got last year. Like, last year was, it was a great foundational year. It's no more victories, but we were in the first year under a new head coach, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, the coaching staff all trying to figure each other out and gel, and the players, we had a lot of new players, transfers, all of that stuff. It was a great foundational year. We were in position, the last game we played against Texas. The winner of that
even
game,
with a lot of injuries,
the winner of that game goes to the SEC championship. And the first year is great, but it's time to build off that year and to take the next step. And I think that the guys that put in the work, we put in the work as a coaching staff to take that next step. And so it's going to be exciting. We had a young quarterback, last year he started 6 games. He got a full off season. So I think, Marcel's going to have a good year. We have a bunch of good O-linemen coming back. We got probably 4 draft picks on that O-line. We got 2 running backs, 2 NFL caliber running backs. We added some offensive weapons at receiver. We had some that we recruited and have developed. I look forward to watching that side of the ball. And then defensively, we got a lot of good pieces back. I know we lost a bunch on the defensive line, obviously, with both Shamars and Nick being, first rounder and 2 second rounders. But I honestly think that we have a little more depth than we had last year. I like our D-line a lot. I think in the second year, a lot of these guys, Albert Regis is one of the most underrated players in the SEC. DJ Hicks is coming into his own, and he's going to be the starter. Everybody thought he was going to be. And then I got Tyler Onyedim out of the portal from Iowa State. Is a great player. Similar Shamar Turner. He's a similar type of player. Those 3 guys, along with Cassius Howell, who has played a lot for us last year and is probably our best pass rusher. And we added some guys in the portal, TJ Searcy and Dayon Hayes, Sam and Pemba. We got guys returning. Solomon Williams had a great spring and is having a great summer. Rylan Kennedy, he got here, he was 207 pounds. He's 245 pounds, rocked up. I'm excited about all our guys. They've been working their butts off. They do everything that we ask them to do. Those guys are going to play hard. I can tell you that those guys are going to play hard. They're going to play the game the right way. That's one thing we do in the D-line room. We respect the game. We play the game the right way, and the game rewards players that play the game the right way. And so, we're going to be a very physical group, but we're athletic. We can move, and we're strong. So I'm excited about this season for the guys up front.
Well, just hearing that, I'm extremely excited for football season. I know many of our listeners are, and we can't wait to see everybody back on the field. And one more question for you, Coach. When you look back and reflect on your journey, why are you specifically proud that your path led you to Texas A&M and that now you are a proud former student of Texas A&M and now you're coaching here? Why are you specifically proud to be a part of this university and impacting the next generation of Aggie football athletes?
That is why, this place poured into me so much, and like we talked about before, essentially saved my life. And so to be able to be here and pour back into the future of this university, into the future of this game, I get all the lines with what I said I wanted to do. I wanted to get back to the game that afforded me so much, so many opportunities, and what better place to do it at than the place that poured into you. I would enjoy this job at any university, but I'm blessed to enjoy it at the place that poured into me. So I literally have a hand in affecting the future of Texas A&M success on the football field, and off. So I'm just blessed. If somebody would have told me that my journey would have brought me back here, if you ask any of my teammates from any of those teams that I played on, that would I be the defensive line coach at Texas A&M, they would say no. No. So, every time I see guys, they're like, man, I'm so proud of you. And I know what that means. They never thought that I would be, and I didn't. So it's been great. Like I said, it's been great, and I'm blessed and highly favored that I am where I am and I'm doing what I'm doing. So thank you to all of the supporters and all of the donors and everybody that's involved with the 12th Man Foundation, and you guys deserve some wins, some more wins, and some championships and some rings, and I promise you we're going to get them.
Coach Tony Jerod-Eddie on Answering the Call podcast. Coach, thank you again for the time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of Answering the Call. If you're enjoying the show, please rate and follow us on your podcast streaming platform of choice so you can be the first to know when a new episode drops. As always, a big thank you to our incredible podcast producer, Megan Rohde, to 12th Man Productions, and Texas A&M Athletics NIL Department. We also extend our heartfelt gratitude to every donor and season ticket holder for always answering the call through loyal support of Texas A&M athletics and our student athletes. We will be back soon with more content. Thanks and gig 'em.